Hey Stu, what happened last week? Hey, look over there. It's Krush Dev Diary. So the bad news, I didn't have time to record a diary last week. Not a big deal, it happens. Once again, my Sunday was desecrated. But it doesn't matter, because I actually spent Monday on Krush. So we've actually got 2 weeks worth of changes, and I shall go through them shortly. A lot of them are quite dull, but quite important. So here's the first changelog from the 28th of September. This was the first week. This was actually quite a boring list, which is why I was loath to do a diary. But there was some pretty important stuff on the back end. So first up, I have changed the bulldozer crush points. Now, you no longer get full credit should the dozer crush one of the targets. You only get a single point, just a mere token, more of an insult really than anything else. And as a slight boon, your chain is preserved. So now the dozer certainly can crush the targets. It's very much in your best interests, as far as point scoring is concerned, to crush it yourself. So that's changed, and hopefully that'll stop people asking me whether it was intentional, that the bulldozer could crush the targets. Yes, it is very much intentional, but now I've changed the points, so it's a leaner way of scoring. What else have I changed? Changed project, auto-embed via wildcard. Oh yes, the textures I embed into the project, and I had to do it manually for every single texture that I was adding, but I found out you can do it with wildcards, and so I've done that, which is actually quite handy. And I did quite a lot of work with the texture automation, because the stickers, every single sticker adds 3 new textures. So it was getting to be a bit of a pain adding anything. So next change, spun the texture enumeration into a separate class. Yes, as part of the automation process, I have split all of the segments which I wanted to be automatically generated into their own file. So when it comes to code generation, I can just focus on that file and I don't have to worry about touching anything else. The same goes for my main graphics class. I made it a partial class, which means you can have multiple files that constitute a larger class. So the automated section of the graphics class, where I load the textures, that is now in a separate file, and that is now automatically generated. This is pretty much what I did on that day. Texture automation. All I need to do now is put a bunch of image files, whatever format, doesn't actually matter, into a directory, and then I run a texture application tool, which I wrote some time ago. It processes all of the textures into an uncompressed, ready-to-go GL format. And with the work that I did on the 28th of September, now it generates all of the code. Everything. It's brilliant. So if I want a new sticker, I just save out my PNGs, I run my tool, and then everything's there, ready to go. Boom. Nice. So that was quite a bit of work. It took the majority of that dev day, but I think it was worth it. Definitely giving me some major speed gains going forward. What's next? Fixed sprite z-index bug with offset. Right, yes. My sprite superclass. Everything has a position and everything has an offset. Now, when it comes to calculating the render order, I was using the position z-index, but the offset also has a z-index, and I wasn't adding those two values together. So I fixed that bug. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Stu, why do you have both a position and an offset? Well, you see, the offset is applied after rotation, which means if you want to have a drop shadow, well, you can have a drop shadow. It's also useful for multi-part sprites. You can, it's a nice little convenience. Also, what did I do? I made it so that stickers can be attached to other things. Yep, there is a property now on every single sticker that you specify whatever object you like, and the sticker will cling to that object as though its life depended on it. So now when you lose your chain, the chain lost sticker appears stuck to the car, which I actually quite like because it's a lot more readable now. I also make use of this with some of the other stuff that I did in the following week. Now some of the stickers can adhere to the HUD, but we'll get onto that later. And final change this week, added the chain and multiplier to the debrief screen. Because I guess, well, they weren't on there before, and they are on there now. So that's good. So that was that week, yeah. I probably would have called that episode Texture Automation, and the game would have looked exactly the same. But luckily for you, there is, in fact, another week's worth. Here we go, Krush changelog, 6th of October 2014. First of all, fixed brake light Z-index issue. Yes, in fixing another bug, I introduced another. The brake light trails weren't rendering properly. And when I started to account for offset in Z-index calculation for rendering, it messed up the brake lights. So, yeah. So I fixed that bug. That's nice. Another bug that I fixed, I ensured a safe bulldozer start position, which is to say the bulldozer now starts a minimum safe distance away at the very least. You'll see in some of the older footage the bulldozer starts right next to you, which was, well, obviously that was a little bit inconvenient. Another change. Oh, this is quite a visual one. If you watch the arrows now on the heads-up display, you'll notice they change size depending on the distance to the target. It's a relatively subtle effect, but they do scale up. They start off kind of small and they get kind of bigger. So that's nice. I think that was one of the suggestions in the comments, actually. Next up, I added a sanity check to target placement. Now, before a new target location is selected, it has to satisfy a number of rules. It can't be too close to the bulldozer, can't be too close to the car, can't be too close to any holes, I think. There's still a few more checks like that I need to do. For instance, the hole generation code is completely without mercy. I have a pretty good run later on in this footage. I don't know if you'll get to see it though, but I get to the yellow phase, which is, I think that might be the last phase. And a hole actually spontaneously generates underneath me, which was rather unfair. Actual shouting at the screen was produced. Do you know, I actually quite enjoy playing Krush. Just for the record, it is actually quite good fun. Like, it gets really tense when things start to speed up. And somehow, when I was recording for this video today, I managed to play the game for like 40 minutes, and I didn't realise I was playing for that long. I was just having too much fun. Anyway, next change. Fixed chain reset delay, progress bar. So the chain, the flashing thing in the top right that indicates your chain. In past builds, some of you noticed that it didn't always refill entirely. That's because the bar was set to a fixed period of time, but the amount of time you get to replenish your chain actually depends on a couple of factors. Like if the game places a target quite a distance away, it actually gives you an allowance of time to get there. So that means if the target is placed pretty close to you, the game can put a bit of a squeeze on you, so you don't, you're always under pressure to keep on the move and keep crushing, otherwise you lose your chain. So the amount of new time that you get for your chain is variable, but the progress bar scale was not. I have, however, changed that. So now the chain, you'll notice it drains at different rates, but it always refills to the maximum. I suspect that should keep the more anal of you happy, although I bet somebody says, Stu, I noticed the chain reset delay, it kind of, there, you see that hole? I've got to fix that bug. Well, it's not really a bug, it's just a cruel feature. Anyway, where was I? Target particles now random color. Oh yes, you'll notice the particle spray when you crash into a target. It's now, it's sparkly color like the actual target itself, just so it matches. I think I'd quite like to get a better animation for that, but it'll do for now. Next up, refactored HUD Z-indexing. Lots of Z-index stuff going on. It's to do with the stickers. I ran into a whole bunch of issues trying to get the stickers to attach to the HUD, because the HUD isn't rendered as a sprite so much. It's kind of dynamic. You probably noticed the HUD, it kind of floats, and as your momentum changes and the numbers aren't static, it's designed to impart kind of a kinesthetic feel, like to actually sort of give you a sensation of movement and G-forces. And I think it kind of works. It probably works best when you're the one actually playing the game. But yeah, these slightly floaty HUDs, they're kind of all the rage now. if you look at footage of, I think Battlefield has one, and Titanfall certainly has one, where you move about, the whole HUD moves as though it's actually sort of, like a dynamic part of the world, instead of just a static thing. And I kind of like that. It was actually kind of unintentional. Kind of. Originally, the HUD was static. I just rendered it above the playfield as 2D sprites and locked everything to the camera scroll. But I did some fancy stuff. I was experimenting with rotating the camera slightly to impart a slight sense of inertia. And, well, it kind of affected how the HUD was displayed. And I thought, it's got kind of a lilting motion on the HUD. And then I thought, actually, that's a cool effect. I'll keep it. Next up on my list, adjusted hole generation, apparently. Oh, wait, yeah, I just adjusted the rate. That's right. I think the way it was set, I think they were designed to come in on the pink phase, and then the rate of hole generation actually doubled every subsequent phase. And, I'll be honest with you, there were too many holes by the later phases, so I've dialed it down a little bit. I've actually had a pretty good idea as far as the phases are concerned, but I might hold those cards close to my chest. But I have some pretty good ideas for phases going forward, as far as making the game varied, exciting, and interesting is concerned. So that's something I might be working on this week, maybe. I also want to add a slow motion feature, but we'll see how that. I'm not sure if that would be easy or not. It should be easy in theory, but I might have to do some adjustments with regards to the timer, because I don't think the timer would be particularly robust under variable rate of progression. But I reckon I could fix that, and I could probably do some pretty nifty stuff. Anyway, another relatively major feature, once I finally cracked the attachment of stickers to the HUD, was to add an indication of a new record under the time and score, which is pretty exciting, I thought. Because, the high score records, that's kind of the metagame behind Krush. That's the reason to keep on playing. It's to sort of beat your own scores. And so, obviously, making the record more explicit is absolutely what I wanted to do. And it's a pretty nice effect. It just comes up, it basically replaces the label that says time or score. And you might notice it's not just the high score that gets noted as well. Next thing I did, I recorded the session best scores. Yes. Yes. So now, not on your first game, because obviously when you're playing your first game of the session, everything's set to 0, and so you beat your session best time straight away. So on the second game, once you've set that first session benchmark, it actually indicates whether you've beaten that or not. So the session best stickers, that was another addition. And I think by this point in the footage, I've set the bar relatively high, but I'm pretty sure those stickers do turn up in this footage somewhere. So anyway, yes, the records and your session bests now much, much more obvious on the score and time. I may do something similar for the chain as well. So almost at the end of this list now. Next thing I did, I calculated a conversion ratio from my distance units to miles. This was because my mind was wandering towards longer term challenges. I want to make cumulative stuff more apparent as well. So there'll be achievement style pop-ups for, milestone stuff. So crush 100 thingies, crush 1,000, crush 10,000, drive 100 miles, 1,000 miles, so on and so forth. And I wanted to, I wanted to just try and establish what a mile might be. Because, of course, everything in the game is kind of in arbitrary units. I can tell you, I think each tile is 0.2. 0.2 what, you might say? 0.2. It doesn't have a scale. But what we can do is we can look at the size of the car, and we can infer that, how about we say a tile is 5 meters squared? That would mean the car is slightly small, but it's a nice round number, isn't it? So yeah, each tile 5 meters squared, and that means we can work out how many miles have been driven. I might yet do an odometer, Like, so you can see how many miles you've driven total. And it could, there's some challenges in actually making it tick over, but that would be pretty cool. Be a nice little visual thing. Anyway, the final thing on my list, I fixed the full stop kerning on the font writer, because I think the spacing was a bit off. Not glamorous, but, just little details like this that make the difference between, well, it doesn't make much difference at all. Who am I kidding? Anyway, there you have it. 2 weeks worth. Hey, that's not bad going. So what's on the agenda this week? Like I mentioned, slow motion stuff, possibly. There's a session best. See that? It's quite nice. And the transition from session best to record is quite nice as well. Session best, it's a permanent sticker. Yeah, that's another thing. Stickers can now be permanent. But if you beat your record, the sticker becomes non-permanent, and then a new sticker comes along. It's very nice. It's fancy, So anyway, this week, slow motion. I might do some groundwork for the new idea that I have for phases. It's a brilliant idea, this. It's fantastic. It's something that will let me be very creative when it comes to the structure of the game, and also quite mean as well. And I love the idea of being able to do mean stuff. Because there's a whole bunch of stuff that I could do, like double dozers, for instance. And I've been thinking about having phases that change the behaviour of the bulldozer, just to throw you out of the loop a little bit. Like, okay, so the bulldozer's pretty single-minded at the minute. It just chases you. That's it. Boom. Just you. But imagine, for instance, instead of chasing you, it chases the targets. Now, that's not a good thing from your point of view now, because you only get 1 point per Krush. And also, you're going to be going for the targets, and the bulldozer's going to be going for the targets. There's a risk of a collision there. And it's a behaviour that, well, I'm certainly not used to it, because that's not how the bulldozer normally behaves. So I think as long as I broadcast what's changed about each phase, I think having sort of novelty phases could be quite cool. And I've got kind of plans for like a rarity system as well. So, the most common phases will be fairly pedestrian. They might get more dastardly as time goes on. But every so often you're going to get a rare phase and things are going to go a bit crazy. Don't want to spoil every idea that I've got, but I will say disco mode. There's even the potential for doing some really crazy stuff. Like I could have retro mode and the graphics could switch to the look of old school Crusher. Now, admittedly, that's a little bit ambitious, and I'd have to think about having tile sets and switching them dynamically, but, it's food for thought, isn't it? Now, of course, there's no way I'll be able to do all of this, but I could lay the groundwork, and, well, that's often that's the place to start, isn't it? What else? What else can I do? The grinds, showing the progress on grinds and completed challenges. I would like to get some sort of visual element for that, so I might work on that. I've also been thinking about tackling the car and the bulldozer sprites, because these graphics for those things, they're not final. I'd like to get something a little bit more distinctive, a little bit more animated, I suppose. I'd like to have wheels move, and I want the bulldozer to belch smoke as well. So I might design some hexagonal smoke clouds, because, well, hexagons are kind of a motif, and I'd quite like to preserve that. Anyway, it's only one day, so I'll see what I can do, and hopefully I'll have a nice list of some interesting changes for you. So, until next week, probably, farewell.